how much profit is there in good health? So what's the incentive from an industrialized model, which medicine didn't start that way. Hospitals were basically charitable religious orders that founded these hospitals. And now it's been industrialized and divorced from that faith model to a business model. And so it goes down the path of business and optimization when it was built originally on self-sacrifice of the doctors and the caregivers.
Scott, how did you find Carnivore?
Well, I think like most of us, it's YouTube and Facebook feeds. I think I kept seeing Jordan Peterson come up on, just the reels. And I thought, oh, there's something special here. And then, I researched him on YouTube, and the first hit was about him only eating meat. And then that linked to his daughter, Michaela, and his wife. And of course, it was a gateway. It opened all those doors up. And so I have had years of experience with uh, intermittent fasting and low carb and zero carb. But for me, zero carb meant, cauliflower and broccoli and cabbage. But I struggled with binging on sweets. And it wouldn't have to be just sweets. It could be, baked potatoes, pasta, pizza, stuff like that. I couldn't stop eating. So I knew I had an issue there, but I was always felt like I gotta have the willpower and the fortitude to just manage my life. And I think of that a little differently now, that it was more than just, uh, that I liked those foods. They were designed with for me to like them, and that compounded itself in a way. So I was thinking, okay, so my wife always maintains. She can eat a cookie and set them down. She's a maintainer. I guess that's the key word. I have to be an abstainer. So how do I honor my wife and get along in my marriage and eat those nutritious meals that she puts in front of me once a day? Well, if I have to, we'll just go forward. Anyway, I put a video on of Kelly Hogan, her website, My Zero Carb Life, I think. And about 15 minutes into that podcast, whatever one it was, my wife looked at me and she said, "I'm all in, Scott." And she went cold turkey from a standard American diet to strict carnivore overnight. She has had none of the challenges that most of us have, either with binging or snackiness, because she always maintained. And she's seen immediate results, and I'll let her tell her story sometime. But it made my way forward to do something that I've always wanted to do. I just didn't know, I'd never thought that I could do zero carb and that it meant just red meat or, fatty meat. So that's how I found carnivore. And March 1st, both of us started, and we've seen immediate results.
Over 1 month in now, what kind of oh, sorry, I should clarify, March 1st this year.
This year, correct.
This year. So what has happened since you started?
Well, lots of things. I'm off all my medications, and most of my symptoms that were being treated by the medications have melted away. And, um, of course, I've lost weight and got all the other benefits. So medically, I had a very strong why to do this, which would require, to get the full picture, a lot of details. But so let me tell you the gist of it. Of course, obesity, hypertension, benign BPH, swollen prostate. I can throw the fancy words out there, but I've got the male urinary problems that so many experience. So with high blood pressure, um, 3 weeks in, I was becoming hypotensive. In other words, my blood pressure was too low. So I took myself off one of them, and I was just above perfect. And then I took myself the other one, the second one, a couple days later, and I've been perfect ever since. Uh, 118 plus or minus 1 point over 68 plus or minus 1 point. And it doesn't get any better than that. The next thing was medication that I was taking for my prostate. And it was to help with flow. And it also helps with holding back and letting go. I realized that I sat through the whole premiere movie of the fourth season of The Chosen, which was in movies, and it was like a 3 hour plus movie. And yeah, I had to go, and normally I would get up and go at least once an hour. But I held back and watched the whole movie, and really, at the end of the movie, it was like, wow, this is better. And so I decided uh, maybe I could go off that medication for those symptoms. And when I did, I was about as good after 3 weeks of carnivore without the medication as I was with the medication. And now 6 weeks in, or almost 5 weeks in, it's even better.
This is amazing.
It is. I didn't look for that. That wasn't my why. I was also scheduled for I'll give you the acronym, TURP surgery. It stands for transurethral resection of prostate. Colloquially, it's a Roto-Rooter. That was scheduled for the 5th of April. Is it the 6th today? Yeah. I canceled it 3 weeks ago because it only treats the symptoms, and they do have bad outcomes. And if I don't need it, why do that? Should I do something that I can't take back ever? So those were the three immediate results. My strong why as to fix my health was I was being followed up by a cardiologist. I'm just finishing the initial phase of a complete cardiology workup, which after listening to Dr. Ovidati,
Ovidia.
Ovadia, I realized that it wasn't as complete as it could have been. But I went through the physical examination, the lab work, the basic lab work, uh, a echocardiogram, and a stress test. Well, because I'd worn a Holter monitor for 2 weeks prior, and I was having runs of uh, ventricular tachycardia, which is a dangerous, life-threatening condition associated with heart disease. So the doctor is investigating that. What I was experiencing was again, I'm throwing a lot out. I'm a registered nurse, and I retired. So, these were terms I used. What I was experiencing was a thing called bigeminy, or a bigeminal heart rate. That means every other beat is different. I'd have a normal beat followed by an irregular beat that was usually had more gain. It was a harder beat, and there'd be a pause, like the heart just kind of goes, okay. But it was, and you can have up to 10% of those beats, and the medical profession says no harm, no foul. I was at 50%. Most of the day in and day out, nighttime, because I could feel uh, the irregular beats. I could certainly feel, and then of course over time, and I'm getting into minutia. I so focused on it and obsessed about it that I could feel it. I didn't have to take my pulse. I would just have to, okay, I could count it just by sitting still. Well, yesterday, that irregular, um, I was converting back to a normal rate with no bigeminy. So that's 5 weeks in. Yeah. So that's huge.
This is awesome to hear. Um,
Yeah.
because, you know, for men, I guess probably from my age, these are the things we start being concerned about, right? And just changing your diet can have a massive impact. So
Yeah.
on the diet side, what have you been doing? What have you been eating?
Well, I went strictly carnivore after a while because I realized that, as I began to regain my sense of taste and my uh, and things began to settle down. By the way, because I had been, I think, priming with intermittent fasting and trying to reduce my carb intake, and when I had my carb intake, of course, it was, you know, I'd go get down here in the Rio Grande Valley. There's a brand of ice cream that is just superior to most, and it doesn't have a lot of junk in it, but a lot of sugar, of course. And I wouldn't have a scoop or a bowl. I'd have half of a container, and the next day I'd have the other half because I just couldn't stop. And I'd do that on it after a supper meal, so I was full. Yeah, you get the picture. I think there's lots of people who experience the same thing. So, but I was a little bit primed to go carnivore, but I've had a lot of challenges, mostly with elimination, and that should be cryptic and vague enough to, if you want to know what that means, go watch Joe Rogan, uh, which his story helped me be patient and get through it. That's mostly resolved. Um, the But I also wanted to get off caffeine or coffee because, not that I don't enjoy it, and I do, but I knew it was also a contributing factor to the problem I had with my uh, urinary habits. Every time I've tried for many years, I failed because I would get a migraine headache. And it's the only time I would get a migraine headache was going off caffeine. And the answer to those is to take a bunch of caffeine and wait it out, and it'll get better. So 3 weeks. This was a 3 week point again, and that's when I initially contacted you. I said 3 weeks, everything's better. Well, we're a little bit farther into it now, and everything is more better. But I was able to go cold turkey off coffee. I haven't had a single headache from it, and that is also the caffeine also affects the heart rate, because this business with the heart beating, they call it an irritable beat. Well, that sounded like inflammation to me, and I think I was right. Well, I started journaling, which I had never been mentally capable of to do before. I just couldn't settle. That's something I didn't look for. And I found that I was eating, just eating when I was hungry, and whatever felt good in the carnivore. So I was eating between about noon and 4, twice a day. And if I went over 1,400 calories, I didn't feel good. And it was basically beef, eggs, bacon, cheese, heavy cream, and so forth. So that's what I was eating. Yeah.
That's a very short window for 2 meals, but I guess when you say 1,400 calories, it seems like it's you're not eating so much that you would feel at all bloated or anything, right?
No, I didn't have any trouble with bloat. But I felt I would fall into that because I knew from the past that if I was not eating junk. I always have done best if I don't eat until noon, even when I was on the SAD diet, the standard American diet. Um, as long as I didn't have a low blood sugar or something and get shaky or something like that. Um, so if I wasn't binging, I always did better just not eating till noon. And it felt right. Unless we were going to get up and go somewhere and, go all day, I wouldn't eat until noon. And sometimes my eating window was just 2 hours between 2 and 4. And I'd consume 1,100 under the journal, 1,100 to 1,200 calories, and I'd be sated, perfectly satisfied. Another remarkable thing, my wife saw it right away, and I saw it, is that I wasn't getting up in the evening when we were sit together and we were watching, surfing YouTube uh, for a movie or a series, and now of course, it's all the carnivore communities. Something that interests us or speaks to a topic that's of interest to us. I wasn't getting up every 10, 15 minutes and raiding the pantry. And even when I was maintaining, I would get up and do that, and then I'd shake it off and go sit back down. And my food cravings and my snackiness, if you've ever walked in flowing water, if it's up around your ankles, you're aware of it, but you can manage. When it gets up to your knees, it's a struggle. But when it gets to a certain point, you just got to go with it. You can't resist that anymore. And that's the way my snackiness or my binge eating was like. And I've been relieved of that. I have none of that. It just disappeared. And I've been this way since since childhood.
That's great. And the running water is a good way of describing that feeling. I certainly myself have experienced that as well. You were gonna mention something about some other benefits before.
Yeah, that I wasn't looking to change. It was like, oh, maybe someday, yeah, wouldn't that be nice? So I carry a diagnosis of severe obstructive sleep apnea, and I've been on BiPAP on high levels for many years. After falling asleep at stoplights, I decided I better get this checked out. I'd be driving and I'd pull up to a stoplight and I'd not out. So severe sleep deprivation, and my wife always complained. In fact, there were years that I slept in a separate bedroom because she couldn't sleep with my carrying on at night, snoring and gasping. Um, I was a chubby kid, and once I went on CPAP, this is just a little tidbit. And when I was talking to one of my older brothers about it, he said, "Yeah," he said, "when we shared bedrooms, there were sometimes 3 or 4 of us in the same bedroom." And he said, "I'd lay awake at night and I was afraid you were dying because you'd go for almost a minute before you'd breathe." So as a chubby kid, and I wasn't obese, never lean. So as a chubby kid, I was experiencing an obstruction. So my drive to breathe is perfect, but as you relax into sleep, then that's not powerful enough to get the air through. 2 nights ago, I've been weaning myself towards this. Last 2 nights I've slept without it, and I haven't gasped or woke my wife up once. Yeah, I get a little emotional over that one.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to put that thing away, the BiPAP machine.
Wow. And so have you I mean, this is what, 5 weeks?
Yeah,
Coming up on 6 weeks. You're off all your medications, you're better. You've put the machine away.
yeah.
Um, do you
My
do
heart
you
rate's
have plans do you have plans to go to your doctor and say, "Hey, look, I've solved everything."
yeah. Well, I sure do. In fact, I'm working up a little way I'm going to approach him, and I won't. Um, yeah, I think so I'm going to say, look, especially when I see the urologist, who I think might be quite open to this based on snippets of, just got a hint. I'm going to say, well, the reason I canceled it is because I'm better, which doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. Uh, and but it does. And I say, and um, I'm off my medicines too, and I'm better than when I was on them. And so, what I would like, Doc, on one hand, I don't think I need you anymore, and I really thank you for your help. But if you'd like to partner with me, and let's say this fall or next year, we redo the flow study and the other metrics so that there's actual objective data on this. And would you be interested in doing that and partnering with me? And if he says no, fine, I'll go my way, he goes his, no harm, no foul. Does that sounds reasonable to me? At least he knows that, hey, I lost the patient to the carnivore diet. And I don't know why. So yeah, and being that my experience with doctors is that they are all compassionate, well-meaning people who want to help people, but they're not allowed to do that. They're forced to treat symptoms, and they are forced to with time constraints and uh, standards of care that are the computers actually will alert them the a committee that this doctor hasn't prescribed the right medicine because he has this patient with a certain diagnosis, and you starts with a memo, a slap memo, saying you've not met the standard, with no context because maybe the patient wouldn't take the prescription. That's not in there. It's just you're not meeting it, and so doctors are in a you have to deal with that. I've never met a stupid doctor. I've met some arrogant ones, but they were brilliant, and I was happy to work with them. Because I my job as an RN was circulating in the operating room, and surgeons are among the most they're high functioning alpha type people, and they want it their way or my way or the highway. Um, and I get that, you know, um, but I've never met a dumb one or a stupid one or one that didn't care. And so I've had a really good relationship with them, and I haven't met, some of my dear friends are medical people.
So the standard of care and how the computer's basically following up on the doctor and saying, hey, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. I guess that's why a lot of patients that don't want to take certain medications get slapped with a non-compliant patient status.
That's right. It gets entered into your record that patient is non-compliant. Yep. And that can mean a lot of different things, but it certainly impacts, it impacts everything, even to the point where the nurse and the doctor it's kind of like a Star Trek thing. Their shields go up because whatever I do for this patient, they're, shields up, because they're going to get blasted with pushback. The doctor is from the patient. So why are we even having this office visit if you're not going to do what I have to offer you? But yet the person's sitting there asking for help, and it's hard for the patient, hard for the doctor.
Wow. So it's almost like you go to a friend for advice. Your friend gives you some advice, you don't take it, and the friend says, "That's it. Don't come to me anymore. Just don't come and seek advice anymore."
Yeah, because what are we accomplishing?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting. Wow.
and
Uh,
and that doesn't speak at all to just treating symptoms and not doing a root cause analysis. which is something we did all the time in my trying to optimize our workflows and our performance in the operating room. We did root cause analysis, and why not apply that model to medicine? Root cause diagnosis and coming up with a treatment plan or plan of care based on that, putting that lens on, okay, we have a sick person. Where does this begin?
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, that's what every industry has to do eventually, right? Whether it's software, whether it's mechanics, whatever it is, they have to go, well, we can put out the spot fires, but until we actually go to the root cause of this, the spot fires are going to continue.
Absolutely. Yes, that's right.
Mhm.
You optimize your organizational efforts. You optimize profits that way. There is no, you mentioned, when I bring that up, how much profit is there in good health?
Yeah, not very much.
So what's the incentive from an industrialized model, which medicine didn't start that way. Hospitals were basically charitable religious orders that founded these hospitals. And now it's been industrialized and divorced from that faith model to a business model. And so it goes down the path of business and optimization when it was built originally on self-sacrifice of the doctors and the caregivers. And you see, that's a huge paradigm shift that just kind of happens slowly over time.
So speaking of, social things, but just going on to a slightly different topic. Um, in the 5 weeks you've been doing this, um, socially, have any of your friends, people at church, anything like that kind of said, "What are you doing now? How come you're not eating cakes anymore?"
Well, yeah, every day, every day. And I've got people in my pastoral leadership in my church that are saying, yeah, it makes sense. Um, and they want to go for it. People in the congregation. Uh, we have a guest right now who um, she's a registered nurse and she's a type 2 diabetic and all the things that go with that. And she's on all the best uh, diabetic drugs, and she's developing all the worst, uh, headed towards very serious health issues that she links from, and I don't want to say names of the drugs and different things, but there are serious side effects of these newer drugs. And she's wearing a glucose monitor, and I said, well, you understand all this, she says, I know I can control this with diet. And so without getting in, I said, well, I brought we brought our friends in. She was one of them, and I went out to the local meat market and I got uh, prime cuts of New York strip steak. It's called natural at this store. It's a step above prime, and because it's grass fed and different things. And I prepared those steaks for our friends, and that's what we ate. Um, and she checked her glucose before and after and before she went to bed, and she said it's elevated. I mean, I would never want to see mine that high, but she says this is lower than average. And in the morning she says this is the low, and then in the morning when she woke up, she tested it and it was lower than she's seen it since she's put on the glucose monitor. I don't know how many months ago they changed them out. And I said, now, and she said, I want to do this. You sold me. And I said, well, and they were going out on tours and stuff. And I said, well, would you like to have, I can make you bacon and eggs or anything you want this morning. She says, no, I'm not hungry. And so at lunchtime, she ordered, when everybody else ate, she ordered a burger and ate only the meat and the pickle. And she said I was fine the rest of the day. She's in her house now, and they're preparing meat, my wife and her. uh, and the and her blood sugars are way below average, and that app shows her that. And I said, "You see, one day, one day, you'll be here 3 days." I said, "Just wait and see." And she says, "Oh, I'm all in." So yeah, we're having impact,
Wow, that's great. That's really good to hear.
and among my family, um, I have one sister that is quite knowledgeable on this, and another sister who is also quite knowledgeable on this type of thing. Um, Basically, they're um, gluten intolerant, and so they've gone with the no grain, no pain type of attitude, and also keep the sugar out. But um, they have lots of muscle and joint pain, and so I think that we can help. That I'm going to. They're encouraged that maybe they can even tackle that.
Yeah, this is it's great to hear that we can have such an impact because even just the people around us, you know, you've got to maybe convince one or two people to give it a try. They give it a try, they have success, and then that's going to flow from them as well. It's like, you know,
It's almost like multi-level marketing.
Yeah, yeah, a kind of a way that, you know, you can actually talk about multi-level marketing in a good way, you know? It's not like, you know, most people feel bad when you talk about that, but you go, "Hang on, here's a nutritional version of it where, you know, it's actually gonna have an impact, a positive
Yeah,
impact."
but I'm not selling you any pills and potions.
Right, and you don't yeah, you know, we can talk informally, you don't have to come around for a big meeting with a whiteboard.
Yeah,
Just come to a barbecue.
and how much does it cost? Well, I track my budget, and we've spent less. In fact, uh, my wife had it's called the Will. The first Saturday of each month, the ladies of our church get together, and they bring food, and they also have an exchange. So you bring anything you want to, clothing, jewelry, and they have, from time to time, people have brought food items, and anybody who would like to swap jewelry, they do that, or clothing, they do that. So in addition to those things, sometimes there have been baked goods or actual food items that people have brought. Well, we emptied our pantry, and I had a large tote. And when I got the tote filled, I couldn't pick it up, and so I had to split it out into three other boxes. And I think I went in with three large boxes, and it's everything from the canned goods. When I went through things, I found three bags of confectioner sugar, 2 bags of brown sugar, unopened, because my wife has canisters in the kitchen uh, on display that have those things in them. And oh, by the way, we don't. We felt so proud that we didn't use cane sugar; we used coconut sugar, good sugar. We know better now. So we haven't emptied our house out, but we took all that, and people were thrilled to take it. Bags of rice, bags of potato flakes, all that kind of stuff that fills up a pantry. And we no longer are limited for space in our storage. Another,
Yeah, and I guess you hardly go into the pantry anymore anyway, right?
no, we're putting equipment in it.
Nice. So I guess from this point, are you carnivore for life now?
Well, I can't see going back. I um, think that at some time I would like to, if I wanted to, um, doing like an old, try to find it. I know I actually can source uh, turkey red wheat, the stuff that came with the Huguenots out of and was in Russia. from 300 years ago. I know there's only about 40 acres of it planted that I'm aware of from this one source. So if they have a good crop, those communities will sell some of it, and I know where to get that. But it's certainly not the same wheat that was consumed even 1,000 years ago, let alone even more than that. Um, but that bread was just stone ground wheat, water, and a little salt, nothing else. So I would eat that. Why not? Um, but no, I can't see myself. And when I get back to Wisconsin in the summer, I actually can source raw dairy and grass-fed beef, custom, you know, uh, custom processed to what I want from a local family that, and that's all over the place. That's not special. It's just that there's less of it down here. And the pastures are better up there than down here in this subtropic area. So I love meat, I love eggs, and all this stuff. Well, who doesn't love sugar? But I can do without it now.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to do without something when you know that you don't have to put up with the pain that comes along with it, right?
Yeah. And, when you think of all the social ills that are, um, and I've listened to quite a bit of Dr. Shafee's, I'm not sure if it's Siggy's, or where, he was a plant biologist before he became an MD. And, he's basically, his mantra is plants are trying to kill you. And I think I got a good handle on that now. I was just thinking about it today. Of all the poisons that have been militarized or used throughout the years, and all the drugs of abuse. So, and I'm talking about, meth, cocaine, the heroines, the morphines. They all come from plants. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. Do you know of any poison or drug that's made from meat?
No, I don't see any drug gangs going around stealing cows.
No. So if we can chemically, process out that kind of toxin, that means it's there already. And well, what's the safe level of cyanide to ingest? And I think it's the World Health Organization has got those listed somewhere in a table, and next to cyanide, it's 0. So all you got to do is pick up your plant biology book and start looking at what's in the good veg, which has been hybridized into basically like carrots. Who doesn't think that carrots are good for them? They're simply a sugar bomb, or a sugar spear, I should say. It's what they've been engineered for taste and to make you want to eat more and more often.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. So, Scott, do you have a way of reaching out to you if they want to get in contact? Any social media?
Well, that's coming. Okay. I've even got a name for my YouTube channel, and I've actually recorded some content, but I haven't taken that next step. Uh, so if someone wanted to connect with me, the only way they could do it on social media is to find me on Facebook. I just have a regular page there, and it's my name. You got to spell it right. And in the little, the avatar, the little picture, it's not a picture of me. It's a picture of an authentic Plains Indian teepee. It's white and blue. And if you see that, that's me. Shoot me a message and say, "Are you the carnivore, Scott Werner?" And I'll let them know that I
Cool.
am.
Thank you. Well, Scott, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us today. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I appreciate the chance to do it.